feel like this new problem that we were seeing, this is like the checklist mentality of just like, all right, let's get them through. Like, it's almost like factory farming for compliance, right? Of just like, we're just gonna stuff a bunch of chickens in here and we're not gonna give a shit about like how they live and everything. That pressure is kind of like going to the customer as well, where they're saying, hey, I'm just trying to do the bare minimum to pass compliance. It's kind of like the newest sort of entrant. That's at least raised a lot of money, right? There's obviously a lot out there, but they're sort of the newest one. And they had this thing that was like, I don't know if they quite used the word guaranteed that SOC 2, but it was something like all of our customers passed the SOC 2, right? Which is like, it's kind of like red flag, like not everybody should be having an easy time, and there shouldn't be this like wording around like guarantee or like it's gonna happen, because it puts a lot of pressure on the auditing firms, right? It's kind of like, oh yeah, like the GRC platforms are like, yeah, no, like, no problem, just buy our tool, just plug things in, and like you're gonna pass SOC 2, like no problem. And the problem is that all these GRC platforms, again, this is like my total speculation of like how it works, and I don't know if this is like necessarily true. This is just my guess. Is imagine you're this big GRC platform, you probably get a ton of leads, right? Especially compliance is hot right now. Compliance is hot, and those leads, right? Those people need to get auditors, right? So I'm sure they send a ton of leads to these auditing firms, right? If you are the recipients of a ton of leads, and the GRC platform is saying, yeah, everybody gets SOC 2, like it's easy, then you're gonna have a lot of pressure to like appease to that vendor to always pass their customers, and sort of just like, almost like, I mean, there's a degree of automation that's involved here. That's sort of like, it's kind of like an old school industry that's finally being innovated on, I would say. But at the same time, it's also putting a lot of pressure on a lot of these auditing firms that are like, oh my God, like, I need to drive the price down. I need to outsource this. I need to like make this really fast because I used to be receiving, I don't know, let's call it like 10, 15 referrals a month for the last 15, 20 years from these kind of bigger firms. And now I'm receiving like 300 referrals a month, and my auditing firm can't process all those. But I want to capture the revenue, right? Like, I don't want to say no to it, and I want to make my GRC vendor like really happy so that they keep sending me stuff. And I feel like it creates this new problem that we were seeing, and I feel like on the LinkedIn, there's a LinkedIn forum about all this, is like the checklist mentality of just like, all right, let's get them through. Like, it's almost like factory farming for compliance, right? Of just like, we're just gonna stuff a bunch of chickens in here and we're not gonna give a shit about like how they live and everything. That pressure is kind of like going to the customer as well, where they're saying, hey, I'm just trying to do the bare minimum to pass compliance. And what's happening that I'm seeing a lot with a bunch of the prospects that I'm talking to is the lived experience of going through SOC 2 is incredibly different from firm to firm. And we've noticed that a lot of this has to do with which auditing firm you use, right? Just in the past, I want to say like 2 months, I've talked to, I want to say 3 different prospects that are SOC 2 today, okay? And they don't have an MDM. One of them doesn't even collect evidence. And I was like, how's that possible? And he's like, yeah, like, we meet once a year. We have a 30-minute conversation. We catch up about family. And then he's like, all right. I was so shocked. I was like, what? And I was like, he's like, yeah, I don't even use the GRC platform. Like, there's no need. I was like, dude, those guys need to lose their license. Like, that's not. But like, if now that's the lived experience of this prospect, I've had so many of them actually. They say they've switched auditors to go for the ones that are easier. They're like, sensible. They're asking us too many questions about security, and they're too thorough. Yeah, they're doing their jobs is what they're doing. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, the name of the game behind a lot of this stuff is revenue.
Yeah.
It's the reason that companies want to go get SOC 2 compliant so they can go and capture revenue. right? So, of course, human nature is going to be to take shortcuts. And if all I need to do when I get that RFP is just
Yeah.
check the box, I'm SOC 2, then people are going to trend towards being able to get away with that, right? Especially because in many of the conversations with companies, I mean, if you're at the stage where you're getting SOC 2 for the first time, you're also at the stage where you're willing to cut corners in many cases with security. Security is not this thing that leadership tends to want to invest a lot of money into because nothing bad's happened yet, so why
Right.
should I care? Or they're just completely oblivious to it, and I have an IT guy, and I'm sure he's doing everything for security, and it's fine, right? And so the trend is going to be to cut corners on that. And then naturally, too, from an auditing firm perspective, they're also going to want to cut corners because of this influx of, hey, business is growing. As long as I don't see negative consequences to this, we're just going to keep going.
Right.
So it's very difficult in many cases to convince an organization that they need to do it the right way and
Right.
follow it to a T, because in many cases there isn't this bigger force that's sort of driving them to do that. As long as they can skirt through the process and everything's good, of course they're going to naturally tend to want to do that, right?
Yeah.
What we are seeing is that more companies are getting more security questionnaires
Yeah.
because the smart ones are privy to what's going on. And I don't
Yeah.
know what the solution is exactly for the compliance industry, but the people in the know are saying, cool SOC 2.
Yeah.
I want you to fill out the security questionnaire anyways,
Yeah.
because I don't trust
I don't believe you.
that report's not telling me everything that I need to know before
Yeah.
I'm willing to just give you
Have
access
you
to.
have you read a SOC 2 report? Like, you'd think it would have all this like fancy stuff in it. That'd be like, all right, like I'm gonna read through this report. When you think about that, I think of like, all right, 20 pages. I'm gonna read through this 20-page like white paper about the internal workings of this company. And you read through the SOC 2, and I'm like, I don't know, I didn't really learn anything about this company.
No, it doesn't tell you what you think that it might tell you, and that's part of it too. Is that I need to go and better understand the controls that you have set up. The fact that you don't have any exceptions on your report isn't enough for me, right? Like I need to actually understand how you're doing this and how you're treating it and everything like that. And I think we're going to see more of that. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not sure what the answer is. If we're going to have a new iteration of the framework or whatever,
Right.
but yeah, many people
Right.
are just are not taking it as the same value that it used to be.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a little bit of this discussion with Bruno. I was like, man, like, SOC 2, the SOC 2 framework's got to change. And his feedback was, doesn't matter if SOC 2 changes, it's on the auditor. If the auditor is going to cut corners, they're going to cut corners on any of the frameworks, right? Doesn't matter if you meet these rules, right? Because you're just saying, hey, like I'm not gonna look at that. It's gonna be an exception, blah blah blah. So I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is. I feel like security questionnaires are sort of like I mean, you can always lie on them, right? Or sort of, right? Like if you're using a GRC platform and you're like verifying, or like if the person is verifying, like, okay, I see this control up, or you're able to see the sub processors or that sort of thing, then there's some level of like verification or assurance. Because it's easy, otherwise it's easy to lie, right? Like someone sends you an Excel spreadsheet with a security questionnaire, you're like, this is how I do this, and it's like, unless you're gonna give me GDAP permissions on Microsoft 365, like how am I gonna check that, right? So it's probably going to be moving in that direction. The industry as a whole, to be able to essentially publicly verify that you do have these things turned on and these things are actively monitored, right? But the other thing I feel like that's going to happen is people are also going to go after more challenging frameworks, right? ISO and CMMC, obviously, if just more challenging, more comprehensive things that are more challenging to go through. I feel like of a lot of the prospects that we've talked to, while the lived experience of people getting SOC 2 or are SOC 2 is very different, I feel like I haven't had that experience with people who are ISO or NIST or what have you, and those people all collectively say, yeah, this shit is hard.
Well, part of it is just the innate identity of SOC 2 is that it's purposefully ambiguous.
Mm,
Because the idea is not so much are you following a X control to the
sure.
T. It's more about the organizational philosophy around security and the general setup of things, right? And so its benefit is also its weakness,
Mm,
right? It's purposefully ambiguous because it's supposed to be adaptable to the individual organization. But then what that can also create is that be based on the scope or what have you, or how the auditor does things, you can potentially pass and not really be living up to the robust protocol or standard that people would hope that you would when you're showing that
right.
badge.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is difficult and many times from an MSSP standpoint to speak to these things because a lot of it is just dependent on do they have a checklist mentality or
Yeah.
does the organization truly back this as an initiative and understand this is a logical part in its maturity as an
Right.
organization. It's not just being able to say I have a badge, here's the
Right.
checklist. It's being able to say no, as part of my organizational growth and maturity, I'm going to live up to a dedicated security standard and way of operating in accordance with certain policies and procedures and guidelines
Yeah.
and things that is externally validated
Yeah.
by a reputable firm, right? That's a very different.
It's so different. And I think what's so funny too is I feel like it's from talking to man, I talk to so many of these people every week. The people who know nothing about SOC 2 are the ones who are the most convinced that it's easy. And then the people who are like have a security background, the people who are like IT managers, they're the people who are like, oh, this is so hard. The people who have like a SIM, a SOC, they've got MDM set up, they've got SSO on all their apps. Those guys are like, oh yeah, this is hard. You know, you gotta take things like ISO really seriously. It's a lot of work. And then you've got you've got Jimbo over here who's getting pretty close to closing a 100K deal or a $10 million deal, and he's like, Chat GPT, how am I going to get SOC 2? Lands on Drata's website and is like, oh, found the solution. I'm just going to go buy Drata and I should be done in a month, right? And it's just like when you talk to those people, it is like so much more challenging because there's so much education involved and there's so much like so many of them are like in denial of like what do you mean, like I feel like in today's world where like you can just get everything done like really quickly, you got Uber, you got DoorDash, and you got all these like apps, SaaS applications with PLG motions where you can just go in and trial and go play around. And it's like, this is one of those things where I feel like, yes, it's good to have a SaaS for this. And like, I would never attempt to do this without a GRC platform. But at the same time, it gives people the like, almost the expectation of like, oh, wow, compliance automation. I can just buy this thing and like, I found my solution. I just chat GPT'd it. I found it. I'm like 1 month away. I'm in security review for this deal. Okay, I can go get SOC 2 in a month. And it's like, oh, too late.
It's kind of like in fitness, right? Supplement companies are going to tell you that if you take this pill,
Yeah.
you'll gain 10 pounds of muscle, you'll lose 20 pounds of fat in a month, whatever. And people are naturally predisposed to want to go that route.
Yeah. We
It's
all
not fun when the personal trainer comes and tells you you're looking at about a year to get
yeah.
the results that you actually want. And it's going to involve watching what you eat. It's going to involve
Yeah. No fun.
cardio, lifting weights, all of these things that you're not accustomed to, right? Going to bed on time, cutting out the drinking on the weekends, etc.
Yeah.
That's more of what our conversation is like. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, you need an actual lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Whereas people are naturally just going to go and say, well, these people say that I just take this pill. What do you mean that I
What
have
do
to
you
go and
mean?
do this?
So easy.
And going back to the revenue thing, right? Revenue is one of the biggest enemies of the compliance industry because from a sales rep, if I put myself in the shoes of a sales rep at a compliance automation platform, I got to hit quota,
Yeah.
right? Organization has aggressive growth goals because there is 500 million or whatever
Sure.
that's been invested into them. So we need to be growing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I am meeting with customers and I'm telling them, now I'm not saying everybody does this,
Yeah.
But I'm saying I have seen it very frequently that those conversations are not being had because the objective from a compliance automation platform, at least from the sales cycle standpoint, now you could
Sure.
talk about retention, NRR. That's a very different conversation, which could be
Right.
its own podcast, right? But at least from a net new perspective, my whole thing is I got to sell.
Yeah.
And as long as I get them on that 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract, I did my job.
Right.
I'm hitting quota. They bought my platform, we're good to go. Now, the
Right.
problem is that many of those prospects' expectations are not being, the right expectations are not being set with those prospects. In the sense of, yes, this is a tool, very useful tool, very helpful tool.
Yeah.
We're glad we have it, but what are you doing about the rest of
Yeah.
these things that are going
Yeah.
on, right? How are you thinking about that stuff? I'm sure you're having that conversation. It's more difficult. You have to know more about
Things
these
slow
things.
down. You got to involve more people because it's like, oh, that's not all my domain. I got to involve ops and I got to involve other people, right? It's a lot more of like what we're experiencing where it's like, oh, people come to us and, they've been using these tools for 6 months, a year, or trying it, by themselves. And if they don't have the internal resources, like they don't get it done.
And if I'm on the compliance automation platform side and I start having to involve different vendors in addition to me as part of the sales process,
Yeah.
now I'm contingent on other people.
Right.
And yes, the data does show that involving partners does work. But it is to say that if I don't have to, and if everything looks
Yeah.
like it's going well,
Right.
I'm
Right.
closing faster.
And if I make that change, but the other vendor doesn't, is that to my benefit?
Right? There's no conspiracy theories here. I think it's just natural human nature, right? If I'm a rep and I got to close 5 new logos this month, I'm gonna sell the software, right?
Totally.
I'm gonna sell the software,
Totally.
and maybe it's up to partnerships or whoever to make sure that program is in place to get them fed into at least a consultation with an MSSP or whatever.
Sure,
And
sure.
we're starting to see that happen,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I think that this is part of the problem is that platforms want to sell, auditors want to sell, we want to sell. It's
Yeah.
just that we're actually selling the real
Outcome.
problem.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Part of us selling and succeeding is being the bad guy, unfortunately, and being able to say, hey, this is going to take you 12 months
Yeah.
and it's going to cost you X amount of money to go and do. And we're the bad guys that tell kids that Santa's not real.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, at some point, if you want to keep enjoying Christmas, someone's got to put them presents under there. You know what I mean? So that's sort of part of it. But yeah, I think that just naturally companies exist to make revenue. People in the positions exist to make their quota and make their commission and things like that. And are we really going to trust 25, 26-year-old sales rep at a growing SaaS organization that has no security background that they should be incorporating this? It's a hard sell, man.
Yeah.
It's a hard sell. So I think that if you follow where the money goes, that explains a lot of what we're seeing in the industry today. And like I said, I'm not sure what the exact outcome would look like, but I would think that some additional manner of oversight or things like that would definitely help. I would just like to add that to what you were saying, there's no inherent benefit to me as a compliance automation platform in selling people that the problem is actually bigger than they think it is.
Yeah.
So much of like if you go, I mean, we've both done marketing before as well. If you go and you look at a lot of the websites, right, it's all focused on what you would want it to be focused on as a marketer: easy, speed,
Of course.
etc. And so if you're not putting those things on there, but your competitor is, and your prospect's not educated enough to know the difference, then you're going to lose.
Right.
And so I think that we've even seen taglines like you had mentioned earlier, SOC 2 in 2 weeks.
Oh, what was it? Compliant by Sunday or by Tuesday or something? Like something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right? So if that's the route that everybody's doing, then how do you do better? You start to promise even crazier things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not just easy. You could do it by Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
things like that. And so the problem is much like the general public when it comes to fitness, they may think realistically that you can go and get a six pack in a month.
Right.
Just hit my sit ups and take this
Sure.
supplement, etc. And you're going to go and you do that, but it's not actually the case. So
Right.
I think overall there just needs to be a higher level of education going into these deals,
Right.
and
Well, the
prospects
thing
need
is,
to.
like, a lot of, and it's funny because I even had someone bring to me like the screenshot of like those types of things and was like, they're lying, and it's like, not exactly. Like, it is possible, right? Like, the when they say SOC 2, do they mean type 1 or type 2? You can't get type 2, but why not type 1? If you're a company that has like 3 people, everything's on AWS, you've got 3 people on Max. Right, you go buy a GRC platform, you plug in all your like, everything, plug in GitHub and AWS and all that stuff, and like, yeah, it's simple, right? You're only 3 people. I gotta, draft up these policies, automate everything, and blah blah blah. You're done, right? So sure, you're 3 people. Let's say you're, backed by YC or have some sort of VC money, so you have some sort of cash, right? Your tech stack is like could be simpler. You've got like nothing, right? Yeah, it's going to be easy to go get SOC 2 Type 1. But the tagline, SOC 2 by Tuesday or Sunday or whatever in the next 2 weeks, absolutely possible. If you meet this exact, like, very finite, like, your very specific customer, right? Like, I remember I had, Natalie was so mad when we went to the car dealership. This was like a while ago. And she saw this ad that was like 36-month lease for $199 a month, and I'm like, Natalie, like, it's not real. I'm like I'm in GTM, like, it's not real. Like, cars don't rent for $199 per month. And she's like, it's an ad, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you get to the dealership, and it's like, with X amount down, with 850 credit score, with like, it's like all these ridiculous things that like you will never be able to meet. And so once you meet the criteria that you meet, it's like $400 a month. And it's like, all right, that's what I was expecting. But then you have got Natalie, who's just like, not tears, but she's like, what the fuck? You lied to me, right? And so it's just one of those things where it's like, you got to use the tagline because, man, I bet that sells like hotcakes, right? Like, I bet that helps convert people, especially people who are in like a security review right now and are like frantically panicking because they're gonna fail because they don't know. They're like, oh my god, SOC 2 is gonna be crazy, and they land on this website. They're like, oh my god, I can go get this really quickly. Boom, let me go buy. Let me just go set it up. And if you happen to be small and new and like everything's pretty simple, then yeah, going to go get your SOC 2 Type 1 is relatively simple.
Well, how many conversations have we had with people on the bad side of that, though?
So many.
I can think of so many conversations that we've had where somebody's on one of these platforms, they come and talk to us, and they're like, "I'm confused.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I have the platform already." Like,
Yeah.
correct. Where are you at on the platform? We're at 30%. Okay, what's your plan to get to 100%?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're just sort of like, don't understand because their initial foray into this world was via compliance automation platform. And that's what people need to be cognizant about, right? Like, what's the entry point for many people? One of the platforms.
Yep.
Because when you go Google how to get SOC 2 quickly, marketing dollars are going to
Yeah.
appearing on the top search results, these compliance automation platforms, right? So you go and you click on it. Yeah, we automate. SOC 2 never been easier. Bop, 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 bop. Which is true. However, there's an asterisk. So many of these conversations are starting at the platforms. They're starting at the platforms. And these platforms are SaaS platforms that have a lot of funding, and they're there to sell. Like, they're selling their growth. They're very competitive. The reps that are at these companies reflect that as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm just speaking, and I know a lot of great reps
Yeah.
at these companies.
And don't get me wrong, like, I would never try to attempt to do this without a GRC platform. Would never try. Absolute of a godsend of a product category. But
100%. 100%. You have to know its limitations. You have to know its role in this, though. And so I think that a lot of the prospects enter into this SOC 2 conversation via one of the reps at a compliance automation platform, and that is where they're starting their compliance journey. And the best ones do actively look into security and understanding the frameworks and understanding all, like the best ones do. I think we need more of that, though. I really do. I think that we need more reps taking it seriously, that they are the first entry point for a lot of very well-intentioned people looking to go and achieve something that has a massive impact on the business.
sure.
It needs to be treated that way.
I just don't think it's not going to happen. Like, I think if I have a prospect who's going to meet me there, like, I unfortunately have to be the bad guy because I'm the one like doing the implementation, and I'm telling you like I need these things to get you SOC 2, and you are literally paying me money to guarantee the outcome of you getting to SOC 2. But that means it's going to cost you like $300,000 between the tools, the MSP services, the Microsoft 365 licensing, XYZ, right? The pen test tools, all that stuff. Like I need this arsenal of things to get you there, right? Not to mention meeting with you every single week for like 12 months to show you like all the updates that I've made and all the implementation that's going on, right? And like coordinating between everybody and all that stuff. But like if you're just a sales rep at the GRC platform, like I bet on the like mid-market and enterprise, the whole security stuff comes up a lot more. But I bet like in the startup place or the startup like team that where you're like 1 to 30 employees, I don't know how they segment their teams, but about, let's call it that, the 1 to 30, 1 to 50 employees, I bet that almost never comes up. And it's just like, it's just a factory farm. Like they're just trying to get like, boom, 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 close, right? Where I'm sure if you're talking to a CISO of a 500 to 1,000 person, company or larger, like they know, like you're not fooling them, right? Like it's going to be brought up because they have a security team. They have a really complicated tech stack. And it's going to be brought up, but I feel like if you're starting in that startup or SMB space, like, they're just trying to get the piece of paper, man, so they can go close to business.
Sure, money makes a monkey dance.
Yeah.
Revenue, like I said, it's follow the revenue, and you're going to see that corners will be cut, and everything's focused on speed. It's focused on all of those things. It's not the actual intention of the framework.
Right.